Live, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. We have two very special guests on tonight. We have Maria Santelli, and Maria is going to go video list because she's about the house doing things. But and we have Kelly Dougherty. I'm saying that right? Dougherty?
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's pretty straightforward. And both are members of an organization called Center on Conscience and War. And I interviewed Maria a few years ago with, you told me her name before and I forgot already. Maria?
Emily Onchuk.
Something like that. Yeah, and when I was doing the Illinois Green Party series, and it was a really intense interview. And now with this whole Iran debacle, I thought of you guys the other day, and I'm like, I wonder if I can get them back on this show now to talk about their organization. So thank you for coming on, both of you. How are you?
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah.
Okay, good. Maria, why don't we start with you? Tell us about Center on Conscience and War, what it is, when it started, what's going on there.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you so much. So the Center on Conscience and War was founded in 1940 to provide assistance to conscientious objectors at that time, men who were being drafted to fight in World War II. And we've done the same work for almost 86 years now, providing technical and community support to conscientious objectors to war. Of course, back then it was in the context of a draft. But since the 1960s, the Department of Defense has allowed people who are already in the military to apply for discharge or non-combat status while they're in. So that's, of course, the people that we're working with today.
Yeah, no, that's great that move forward like that, where you can be enlisted and still file as a conscientious objector in one way or another. Okay, cool. And Maria, when did you start in the organization, and what's your role?
So I am the previous executive director. I was executive director from 2011 until the middle of 2024. About 2 years ago, I left, but I'm back now because it has been so crazy. I mean, crazy in the best possible way. The phone is ringing off the hook. I mean, I've been on the board, and I'm still connected to the work, still love and respect the work because it is beautiful, wonderful work. But I'm back to taking calls again and providing support to people who are so articulate and in their opposition to this war being waged against Iran by Israel and the United States.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. All right, cool. Kelly Dougherty, what drew you to CCW in the first place?
Yeah, so I myself am a military veteran. I was in the Colorado National Guard and the Army National Guard and deployed to Iraq in 2003, 2004. When I got back from Iraq, I helped start an organization called Iraq Veterans Against the War. Right now, the organization is still around. It's called About Face Veterans Against the War. And so I worked really, I was on the board, then I was the executive director. I did a lot with the organization during the first few years of our founding, organizing veterans and service members to oppose, at the time, the invasions of Iraq and Afghanistan. And then over the years, I have always known about the GI Rights Hotline and the work of the Center on Conscience and War. And for the past couple of years, I've been volunteering and working with the GI Rights Hotline, which works very closely with CCW to provide services and resources to people in the military. And then when the Center on Conscience and War was hiring, both for a new director and a new counseling director, that is when I got the job there. So I'm just brand new employee of the Center on Conscience and War, and I'm taking over as the counseling director from our very long-standing counseling director, Bill Galvin, who's been counseling conscientious objectors since the Vietnam War, and he's getting ready to retire. So I'm learning as much as I can from him And right now, like Maria said, the phone has been ringing off the hook, and we've been talking to a lot of people in the military wanting to learn more about CO.
Really? Like what kind of information are they looking for? The people that are
So,
calling.
yeah, so a lot of people are in the military in all different branches, all different ranks. I've kind of been surprised at how many like senior enlisted and officers that have been calling,
Wow.
just really conflicted about participating. One, in the war against Iran, but it's not just that, right? I mean, one of the things about conscientious objection is that it's an opposition to all war. But of course, it makes sense that when there actually is a war happening, it makes you think more deeply about, wait, could I participate in war? When it's abstract and you're like, well, I don't actually have to make that decision. But then when it becomes a potential reality, then people really start, I think, like doing a lot of soul searching and questioning. But I mean, we've been having people calling and just saying, they're opposed to what's happening in Iran, but also the genocide in Gaza and the U.S. role in supporting that, the bombing of fishermen in the Caribbean, the you know kidnapping the president of Venezuela, deploying troops and ICE in the streets to terrorize communities. So it's just like not just one conflict. It's really a buildup of things that people in the military have been conflicted about, and that conflict really building to where they're saying, what is conscientious objection and do I qualify? So we talk to people, some of whom maybe don't meet the definition of the military's definition of conscientious objector, but a lot of them do. So we're working with people on their applications and kind of talking through the process.
Interesting. Okay, so I have two questions for you. First of all, if you don't mind, just to clarify the mindset of like what you were describing earlier, um, of like you join the military. Militaries are designed to kill and destroy. You go in there with, like you say, it's an abstract consideration only. Then when it really comes down to it, then you get like, oh wait a minute, I don't want to do this. Like how real of it was it when it was merely an abstract? Like I mean, because I've talked to other people in the military, a couple I can think of off the top of my head were like, yeah, I always have it in the back of my head that I might have to do that someday. Um, but like the last time I had Maria on, she was on with Emily Onishchuk, who was a former Navy SEAL, I think. Um, who like when she started the process of like getting to the point of conscientious objector, she like realized like while she was in the military, wait, I don't want to kill anybody. I'm like, oh wow, okay. So like, I mean, do you think about that going in? I'm not. This isn't an attempt to call anybody out. I'm just really clarify the mindset.
Yeah, well, one thing about being a CO, being recognized by the military, is that you have to explain why, when you went into the military in the first place, why you weren't a CO or why you didn't identify that way and what has changed during your service. And I think a lot of people, people in the US, they go into the military for a lot of reasons, right? Like yeah, some people really might want to support or fight in a war, but many people go in because they, want healthcare or housing or college education, or to do something challenging, or there's a family tradition. So there's so many reasons why people go in. A lot of times, even I mean, even talking to people on the GI Rights hotline, just reminds me of how it is when you're so young, and even if there is a conflict happening, you just feel so detached from it, and it's not really what's front and center in your mind or driving your decision. And I could say just a little about my own experience. I joined the military when I was 17, shipped out to basic training after graduating from high school. And I remember there was this point in basic training where we were all in this room together, and one of the drill instructors said, like, if you think you would have a problem following orders to kill, like, raise your hand. And I raised my hand, and one other person in this whole room full of like hundreds of people that were in our basic training unit raised his hand. And so, of course, immediately I felt like, oh, geez, should I have even, singled myself out like that? And then we got called back, and the drill sergeant was like, you know that like you signed something that you're not a conscientious objector, and you know that it's like your duty to follow orders. And so basically, I was just said like, yes, Sergeant, I understand. Yeah, never mind. But I think a lot of people, kind of similar to me, wouldn't don't know about conscientious objection. They've never thought really hard about their values, about their morals, about what they would do in certain situations. They might have hesitations around it in the beginning, especially when you're like going through your training and you're shooting at targets that look like people and chanting these chants around killing people. But you still think like, oh, it's probably not going to happen to me, and so I don't really have to consider it. But then through the time in the military, um, you're just put in more and more situations that really make you think about your own role, and even if you're not the one pulling the trigger, like how your role supports military violence around the world. And so at that same time, you're also growing as a person, learning and really developing your own sense of self and your own morals. So
Yeah,
it's different for everyone.
sure.
So,
Sure.
I share my own experience, but everyone's experience is different. Some people come at conscientious objection from a place of religious belief, but there's many secular people or people that don't identify with any kind of spiritual or religious tradition that just have this very firm moral conviction.
Yeah, no, for sure. I would hope so. Even though that's not always the case, is it? Like I'm thinking back to the other interview with Emily, where she was talking like again when she realized that she didn't really want to kill anybody. She had to go to, or she went to like the military chaplain or whatever, and the guy's like, well, that's a problem, and she's like, really, you're a pastor, and you're telling me that it's I shouldn't want to kill somebody? That's crazy. But okay. Anyway. Yeah, no, okay, that's I mean that's a tough spot. So did you leave the military as a CO, or did you finish your whatever you call it, a term? I don't even know what you call it.
Right. So I never filed as a conscientious
Okay.
objector when I was in. I do consider myself now as a conscientious objector to war. But and my whole military experience, I mean, I think similar to a lot of people, like I was in the National Guard. It's a um, 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, like in theory, military service. I was a medic, so I really saw my role as helping people, right? But I was also trained as military police, and when I was in Iraq, I was military police, and I had, yeah, a lot of problems and with a lot of the things that we were doing in Iraq, did not agree with what we were doing, didn't want to participate, but also, there's that feeling of like you just feel stuck and like there's no options. And really, even though I kind of knew that conscientious objection was a thing, I didn't know anything about it. And that is a lot of people that call, they say, I saw this on social media or someone told me about this. Like, what is conscientious objection? I never really thought about it or knew that it was an option. Or a lot of people think that it means that you have to be religious and you have to be a pacifist, which aren't true. You don't have to be a pacifist. You have to object to participating in war. So that is different than self-defense. It's different than, say,
Sure.
nonviolent resistance. It's different than a lot of things. So I think there's just not, it's not widely known. And so, yeah, so now that we're really trying to put forward this message of CO could be an option for you and people are hearing that, a lot of people are reaching out and trying to learn more information.
I mean that's great. That's great. So what is the definition of a conscious according to the military?
Yeah, so it's someone who has a deep, sincere, moral belief, can be secular, can be based in religion, against war. And it can't be what they would call selective objection. So you can't say, like, I object to the war in Iran, but if you were to go to war against Russia, I would support that, right? It can't be based on certain conflicts. It has to be a blanket objection to war, any war. So that's, the military, a government, a state, military waging organized violence in war against another people or another state.
Does the definition require it to be the case that you're actually at a war? Like, okay, like for example, what's going on now in Iran is not legally a war. Okay, like, and I guess Congress hasn't even declared war since World War II. Yeah, we've been in a ton of stuff.
Right.
Vietnam wasn't a war. You can only with 60,000 American soldiers. It's nuts. Like, does it? So, okay, like I'm opposed to all war. They're like, well, but yeah, but what we're in now isn't a war. Like, did they try to trick you that way?
No, so you can apply as a CO in the military during any time, whether regardless of what kind of conflicts the U.S. is currently engaged in, whether or not those are seen as wars. So while there's this legal definition of war as being something that Congress declares, there's of course many situations where, yeah, you could argue semantics, but it's using an organized military force to wage violence.
Okay. So
against an opponent, and I think a question that comes up a lot from service members I've talked to is like, they're worried, like, am I less likely to get approved because I am filing during a time of war, or war is not war.
Right.
And the answer is no. I mean, the each application needs to be evaluated on the merits of that individual's beliefs. And so, it's really dependent on that person being able to clearly explain and put in writing and explain during their interviews what their beliefs are and how they changed and how they impact their life, both in the military and outside of the military.
Interesting. Do you happen to know, or at least have a guess at, like, what the success rate is? Like, how many people that actually apply to become a CEO actually are allowed that status?
Well, I will say that of the people that work with the Center on Conscience and War, and also through our colleagues at the GI Rights Hotline, almost all of those people are successfully approved as conscientious objectors. I don't have specific statistics on it. It's really hard to say, because another thing that happens is the whole process of applying and going through the approval for CO is lengthy, and it can take like a year. So during that time, a lot of things can happen. So for instance, like sometimes people start their application as a conscientious objector, and then their unit ends up discharging them for some other reason. Like maybe you have 5 months left of your contract, you apply as a conscientious objector, and you end up getting discharged because you're at the end of your term of service before your packet goes all the way through. Or sometimes people apply as a conscientious objector, and then they just come to this decision that they can't even bear to put on the military uniform anymore, that just showing up to duty every day is participating in military violence, and they can't do that. And so they might get discharged for misconduct, for refusing to follow orders, even though they're maybe assigned to more of an administrative role. They might still say, like, I just can't do this. So there's a lot of, I guess, reasons why people might not complete the whole process, but for people who do go through the whole process, and Maria, she was the director for, I think, 12 years, I want to say, of CCW, that the people that she worked with, the people that Bill worked with, like, almost all of them got approved. And I don't know specific examples of people who didn't get approved, but yeah, we have a very, very high success rate working with people. And I mean, part of that is the very beginning, before they apply, making sure that they understand what the criteria is to qualify as a CO, and helping them write their application so that they're really expressing their own feelings and beliefs in a way that's going to get approved.
Sorry, I'm going to text her real quick because it says device is not connected, so I don't know what that means.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm. What sort of assistance do you offer people when they come to CCW? I'm guessing at least some of it, is legal.
So just to, I guess, like put it out, like I'm not a lawyer, and the other members of our staff are not lawyers, so we're not giving legal advice. Although we do have attorneys on our board of directors, and for the Air Force in particular, when a conscientious objector applicant goes to have their hearing. So in the military, in the process, you have to go in front of an investigating officer at a conscientious objection hearing, and they ask you questions and you talk about your beliefs. When that happens in the Air Force, you do have to have a lawyer present. So we do have attorneys on our board that will accompany Air Force applicants during their hearing. And apart from that, we help people in the very beginning write their applications. So we send them all the information, the questions that they need to answer. They answer those to the best that they can at a first draft. We review that, we make comments, suggestions like, oh, could you add more details here? Or could you clarify this belief a little bit more, etc., and help them get the application as good as possible so that when they submit it, they have the highest odds of success. And then we answer questions throughout the process. If the process gets stalled somewhere, we can help give them ideas about how they can get things back on track, because the military has a timeline of like, okay, this is supposed to happen, but sometimes they don't submit it. So sometimes they might need to file a complaint or do something to help their process, their packet continue in towards approval. We'll accompany them to their hearings,
Excuse me.
rebuttals. So after the hearing, if someone, if they left out information or misinterpreted information, we can help them put a rebuttal together. And so really just helping them as much as they need throughout the whole process until they're discharged.
Wow. Okay, that's cool. And what's the specific office you hold there that you just started?
Counseling director.
Counseling director?
Yes, as in conscientious objection and GI rights counseling, not therapy or anything.
Tell me about your mother.
Right.
Exactly. Lay on the couch.
We also, I want to mention, we also provide more general GI rights counseling. So we also will answer calls for the GI rights hotline, and those calls can be about any number of issues that service members are experiencing. And also people who call that are interested in conscientious objection, they might have questions about other things, like maybe they have an injury that they got in the service that's not getting taken care of, or maybe there's like a family hardship. So we're able to help people, give them resources and suggestions for what they can do, both with conscientious objection and with a whole host of other issues.
Well, that's good to know. And yeah, you go beyond just CO. Okay, that's very cool. If you don't mind me asking, just out of curiosity, excuse me, what sort of qualifications did you have going into applying for CCW?
Well, from my work back, in like 2004 to like 2009, like founding Iraq Veterans Against
that's huge.
That organization, working with veterans and conscientious objectors and anti-war groups, like that experience. Also, after that, I got a master's in public health and worked at the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment on our child fatality prevention system. So a lot of both administrative experience, a lot of, working with teams on really difficult subjects. And then the past couple of years volunteering with the GI Rights Hotline, and then being hired part-time through Quaker House, which is one of the groups that operates the hotline, and they're based out of Fort Bragg and Fayetteville, North Carolina, to take calls on the hotline. So, I over the years have a lot of different experience, but a lot of experience related to war, to objection, to
Yeah, no, you're a perfect candidate for sure. Yeah, okay.
And David, another thing that we do that I don't want to forget to mention is that we also monitor what's happening with selective service, which is the system set up to enact a draft.
Yeah, I remember I had to sign up when I turned 18. I remember that. Oh, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, my friends and I were like, "Oh man, this is weird." Yeah, so yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, and so we've also been getting a lot of questions from young people and from parents that are wanting to know if there's a way to declare their child or themselves or their family member as a conscientious objector when they're required to register with selective service. And so we kind of walk them through that. Basically, there's
Wait, say that again. So, like, if like I'm signing up for selective service, I can put on my little thing there that my daughter's a conscientious objector.
Well, if you're at 18, so right now it's for people who are born male are required to sign up when they're 18 or within a
Yeah,
certain.
women don't have to sign up, do they? Females.
Not at this point.
Sorry,
No,
yeah.
not right now. And so there's not an official way to say, hey, I'm a conscientious objector when you register for the draft. But what we basically tell people is if they sign up using a physical form rather than online, they can write, I'm a conscientious objector on that card, make a copy to keep.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Also, write up a statement answering kind of three basic questions around why they're a conscientious objector. What are their beliefs? How did they develop? How does that impact your daily life? To write that statement and to keep a record. So basically, just to keep a little folder of that selective service card, your statement around why you're a conscientious objector. You could include, like, for example, if you're part of a church that has a statement of faith that's against war,
Sure.
you could include a copy of that. And that way, if there ever were to be a draft and you were called up, you could say, I want to declare myself as a conscientious objector, and these beliefs have been long held, and here's my documentation. So there's no official way to do it, but that is what we recommend people do. And another thing is that with the most recent defense authorization bill, they are making draft registration automatic for all men, all male-born people in the U.S. That's supposed to take effect later this year in December, but it's just really uncertain how they're going to enact this and what kind of problems are going to arise by taking all of this data from all these other databases to inform automatic draft registration. So we're monitoring that and trying to, we're definitely opposed to automatic draft registration because we support just getting rid of the draft altogether and getting rid of the selective service. And also keeping it from expanding to women.
Oh, wow. That would be an intense move. Yeah, no, that's great that people can sign that card when they sign up for selective service. And yeah, I expect this administration to like do anything that's, psychotic. So like we're just gonna sign you up for the draft whether you know it or not. But and we're gonna be like just scour your personal data. So yeah, that's these people are crazy. Okay, interesting. And you just started out literally on Monday. You started 2 days ago.
Yeah, and well,
Yeah.
really over the weekend because I was working on the GI rights hotline on the weekend, taking a lot of calls from people, both about CO, but about, all kinds of issues. Then on Sunday, I started taking some calls for CCW because our phones were just ringing off the hook. Thank goodness we had people like Maria and some other volunteers offer to take calls. And, Maria can really walk people through things because she has so much experience. We also have some volunteers just doing kind of general intake with the calls, and then we'll get back to people. So yeah, and then, starting first thing on Monday, it's like working with people on their CO apps because, people are facing imminent deployments. We really believe like the more people we can help express why they're conscientious objectors and put in that application, like that, it can save lives. I mean, I know many people were impacted by previous wars that the U.S. Carried out. I know people who lost family members in Iraq and Afghanistan, and how it just completely is devastating and impacts whole communities. So, if we can keep people out of fighting in war, out of perpetrating that kind of violence against other people, every person counts. So.
Okay, all right, interesting. I have a question here, and I don't know if this is actually in your wheelhouse. So if you don't know, that's fine. But the question is, so trans women are up for the draft even if they get their gender marker changed? Do you know anything about that?
Yes. So everyone who's assigned male at birth
Okay.
is
So a
required.
biological male that transitions into a woman,
Yes.
would
And
still be
so-
considered by the government. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, and that's one of the issues with this move towards making draft registration automatic, is it just is another way for the government to further target trans people and immigrants.
I could see them going well out of their way and overexerting their efforts and energies to go after, 10 people.
Yeah.
They did that with the sports thing. They're like, what was it? In all collegiate sports, there was like 10 trans people, and like Congress was like freaking out. And this, like it's like 10 people. Like, why do you care? Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
So we definitely should not put it past our government, regardless of who's in power at any time, any administration, to weaponize data, to use it to attack more like vulnerable groups, whether that's immigrants or trans people or whoever, right? Because it's like, pick on people that don't have power to divide people. And yeah, that's definitely a pattern. So.
Yeah, no, it's true. It's true. It's repulsive. And then, so Alexandria Keating Sofiakis is the one who asked that question. She's a friend of mine here in Lake County. She is trans, and she said, "Well time to start working on my conscientious objection papers." I'm like, okay, yeah. So,
Yeah,
Alexandria, if you can hear me, did you sign up for selective service? Because I know she's in college, so she's over 18. Sorry, if you can hear me. What's that? Go ahead. I'm sorry, Kelly.
Oh, I was just saying, like, even if the time frame is past when you should have registered with selective service, you can still make a little folder, still write up a statement of conscience to keep, just, as protection. You may, I mean, likely you would never need it, but it never hurts to have that in case the government, ever came knocking.
That's interesting. Yeah, like maybe you could actually like write it up and mail it to yourself and just leave it sealed, so it's like official.
Yeah,
like say, hey, I wrote this, as a statement of intent, like 10 years ago. This is legit. Like okay, I'm not just making this up now, right?
Yeah, and on our website we have information about that, about selective service, as well as conscientious objection, all of the regulations for all the different branches. We're at centeronconscience.org. And so people that want to find more information about that, like, you can go there. We have a lot of resources. So it's a good tool. And then also for people in the military who have other questions or other kinds of problems that they're trying to navigate, GIRightsHotline.org has a lot of good
GI
resources
Rights
as well.
Hotline. Very cool. So Alexander responded, no, most of my friends weren't forced to sign anything when we turned 18. Probably why they're making it automatic now. That's interesting because, yeah, I remember also part of the confusion and despair when I was 18, and that was, a little while ago. Was like I didn't realize we had a draft. I remember my friends and I talked about it. Like, we don't have a draft. What are we signing up for? Like, well, just in case. Okay, I get that, but The draft was gotten rid of in this, I think, under Carter. I don't know if I don't know if he did it as a president or Congress during the time. I don't remember. I think it was Carter. Um, I can't imagine a Republican getting rid of it. So, yeah. So supposedly the all volunteer military is working effectively for this country's wants and needs. Um, but and that's another thing too. Like like there's just any sort of pushback you might get. Like I don't understand why in the military people have to do such a fuss to for you to prove yourself to them. Like, why would you want somebody in your military that doesn't want to be in the military? That makes for a bad soldier, I would imagine. Right?
Well, what I tell people who might be having, a hard time adapting to military life, let's say, not necessarily conscientious objectors, but just people having whatever they're experiencing, is if they're able to still show up and do what the military tells them, it doesn't matter to the military how miserable they are, how much they don't want to do it, as long as at the end of the day, they are following orders and doing what needs to be done to some minimal standard, that's a warm body, right? So,
Yeah, no, and that's one of the things that I just utterly makes me sick to my stomach, and is it's not just militaries, it's governments in general, that they just use their own people as like pawns, and they do not care about you as an individual person. They do not care. They want your body, they want your money, they want your children. Okay, that's what they. It's just it's so disgusting to me. Like a lot of people, like I don't know if you heard this thing about Lindsey Graham. He's like all excited about Iran war and everything. It was like Republicans are like, you need to calm down, dude. That's a little weird how excited you are about this. That's like crazy. So and a lot of people say like, oh, but then you want to do it, go, dude, pick up a gun and go. Like stop sending other people who don't want to go. It's that kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, the U.S. has been wanting to go to war against Iran for decades. Lindsey Graham,
1979.
like really turned on by this idea of going to war with Iran for probably his whole adult life.
Oh, yeah.
I remember back in 2006, I think it was, there was a lot of talk by the Bush administration at that time about going to war against Iran. And I remember participating in actions at that time to try to build opposition to a potential attack against Iran. And then it kind of seemed, to fade a little bit, then to get ramped up again. So it's been this kind of ebb and flow. So what's happening now, yes, it's a result of the Trump administration. It's a result of what the Israeli government wants to do and has wanted to do for a long time. But it's also not out of the blue, right? It's been something people have been having on their minds for a long time.
No, that's true. I also wondered too, one of the founding fathers made it clear that the military and the government are distinct. Like the military works for the government, period. Like, and the government is populated by citizens, civilians. Not military leaders. We don't have like a military leadership, and that's on purpose, because militaries can go a little. And I always wonder, like with Iraq, okay, and the Kuwait thing. The weapons of mass destruction, right? We're like, oh, there's going to be stockpiles. Like to this day, zero, not one. Why would a civilian like George Bush care about that so much that he's going to lie to everybody to get it going? And even Trump, like, they're an imminent threat. No, they're not an imminent threat. Iran is not an imminent threat. Period. End of story. Everybody knows that. All right, so what do you think? I mean, do you have any opinions on that?
Yeah. I mean, I think the U.S., right, as this global empire, has this total hegemony around the world that it's exercised for, long time.
Since at least World War II, if not before,
yeah. Let's say post World War II, and so maintaining that expanding it, securing access to resources is in the interest of like the US government to maintain like global capitalist hegemony. And so, you know, does that mean that Bush really thought, I mean, those are the reasons I think to go invade Iraq, for example, or to start bombing Iran to make that government totally collapse. And is it really in the interest of the people? No. But is it in the interest of the elite and those in power to maintain their power and their money? I guess they think it is. That they're making the calculation that it is. And I think an interesting thing that we're seeing now is with Iraq, for example. Okay, 9/11 happened. That really impacted Americans,
Yeah.
obviously, understandably. So there was a lot of desire among the American population for some kind of retribution, revenge. And so that was used, because it wasn't just weapons of mass destruction, there was also like so much propaganda around like Iraq having some role in 9/11, which it did not have, but that was also something, a lie that they perpetuated. They spent like a year manufacturing consent among the American public for an invasion of Iraq, going in front of the UN and lying, like making this whole propaganda push that they really built up over time, so that when the Iraq invasion started, while there was huge opposition to it, there was a lot of support, you know, civilians and military. There was a lot of support within the military because people bought into the propaganda. With this invasion of Iran, the administration cannot make a coherent argument for why this is necessary or why it's defending Americans, why, our people should kill and die in this war when we don't feel threatened by Iran and we're not. So, and absolutely zero like propaganda push, right? They didn't prime the public to buy into this. And so I think that is a reason why you're seeing such strong backlash. And so many people in the military are just like, this is just like one thing too far because they've been disrespected and like involved in these horrible, illegal, like immoral missions from, starting with being fully on board supporting the genocide in Gaza. So, it's just like one thing after another. Then, Hegseth's dressing down all the military generals and top brass. Like that really didn't go over well. And people are just seeing like, I've talked to people who are higher ranking officers in the military who are just like, the option right now, it just seems like there's no place within the military from their high rank to voice dissent, question what is happening at all. And so, either they shut up and just go along with it or they get out. Right. And then once they're out, and they feel like, some of them feel like that's kind of the point, is to push out anyone who's going to voice any criticism or question anything, so that you just have a whole room full of sycophants, basically, that will go along with anything. And there's such a revolving door when you get to the military, getting a high rank, and then, you might retire and then you get brought in to get big bucks as a consultant or a commentator, right? So there's this revolving door, and so many people that are like, well, I'll just like put any morals or qualms I have about this, I'll just like push it down because, I don't want to lose like a lucrative position, or I don't want to lose this status that I've gained through being in the military for 20 years. So that's why I think it's like so brave for people who, for example, apply as conscientious objectors, because they're saying like not that they don't care about that, or not that they don't care if they are discharged and don't make their retirement or whatever, but that what is so important to them is their own moral compass, and they're willing to put themselves at risk. They're willing to kind of stand out from the crowd to be true to their beliefs. So
Yeah, no, it's definitely takes a lot of courage to do something like that. I could imagine, especially like if you becomes known in your whatever I don't know troop battalion. I don't know how those are categorized, but like people putting pushback as you're going through the process and all the pressure and everything else, and then a lot of people think you're a traitor and you're a treasonous and all the just terrible things. Yeah, no, it takes a lot of strength, moral strength, and fortitude. Sorry, to accomplish something like that. That's why I admire it wholly. Aristotle listed the 8 virtues. The courage was literally the first one, because without the moral strength, you're not going to be able to do anything else. So like it's very, very courageous for sure. And like, but the thing is that it's perceived as the opposite. Like you're wimping out because you don't want to kill somebody. Like what? Do you hear yourself? Like, it's so like counterintuitive to me to think that like for people to think that I don't know. It's just like okay, well we got to go kill the enemy. Like why? I don't understand.
well, yeah, I mean, and I think that's kind of this paradox of being in the military, right? Because it's seen as something that's meant to be like empowering and that
Right.
you're brave and that you're willing to risk your life or take other people's lives in order of this like what's supposed to be a greater good. But at the same time, people in the military are like terrified of doing something that will set them outside of the group, right? I mean, I know it from myself. Like I didn't agree with the idea, like before the invasion of Iraq happened, I was completely against it. I didn't believe in the reasoning being given. I didn't want to go. I didn't want to kill people. I didn't want to risk my life for that. I did not support it at all. But I was terrified to do anything about it because it just is easier to go along with a group, especially when you're in that environment
Sure. Yeah.
where it's like, everything depends upon conforming to the group, right? It's like your housing, your healthcare, your income, your
Yeah, that's a lot. You're giving up everything.
it's like to have the kind of courage to dissent from the group, you're risking everything.
Yeah.
Whereas to be maybe more afraid and go along, you might be risking your life, but you're not risking those other things that might seem more tangible in the moment.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. Well, we're almost at like 50 minutes now. That flew by. That's how interesting this conversation has been. That's always what that means. Is there anything else you wanted to plug about CCW or yourself, your history? I'd love to have you back on as well. And Maria like kind of ditched out because she thought you had it. That was so like nice job. Um, um, like back on and talk a little bit further about maybe your history and stuff like that, and what in the previous organization you founded. Um, but I don't prefer the shows to go over an hour, so I wouldn't start that conversation right now. But I have your number, and maybe we can have you back on another time. But anything last thing you'd like to plug about the CCW or anything else?
Yeah, well, thanks, David. I would love to come back on again. So, yeah, definitely be in touch. Just again, encouraging people. I mean, we've talked to a lot of family members of service members as well. So, even if like people watching this aren't in the military, if you're wanting information for a family member, definitely reach out either to the Center on Conscience and War, and we really can help people with their conscientious objector applications. The GI Rights Hotline again, and then for people who either are in the military or are veterans of the military, Veterans for Peace and About Face Veterans Against the War are two really great organizations that are doing a lot to, one, it's peer support, connecting with resources, and taking action locally. So, yeah, I would just really promote those. And then also Military Families Speak Out is an organization.
There, I lose you.
Can you hear me? Sorry,
Yeah, no, you froze for a second. You're good.
Okay. Yeah, I was also just saying for family members of military that want kind of like a peer support or to connect with anti-war family members, Military Families Speak Out is another organization.
Say the last part again.
Military Families Speak Out.
Okay, cool. Yeah, no, there's some organizations. I know there's one that I took a class. It was like some weird elective in college, and it was with an organization called a World Beyond War. I don't know if you heard of them. And I just reached out to them as well as you guys, and they're going to come on here too. I don't know exactly what they. I don't remember. I don't know that they do the same sort of things you do, or if they just sort of try to convince people that war is bad and we should avoid it. I don't know, which would be great too. No, that absolutely for sure. So, all right, Kelly Dougherty, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate it. It was great talking to you. Very informative, and yeah, I look forward to having you on again sometime.
All right. Peace.
Sorry, hang on one second. I'm going to end this. All right, everybody, thanks for tuning in to Let's Talk Lake County. I'm your host, David Rich. Till next time, keep talking. There's a little lag here.